Hi everyone, welcome to today's Safety and Health webcast, QEHS and Sustainability Performance Management, sponsored by EtQ. My name is Tom Music. I'm an associate editor with Safety and Health magazine, and I will be moderating today's session. Thanks for joining us. In a few minutes, we'll start the presentation, but first I want to go over some preliminary items. The views of today's speakers and organizations are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of the National Safety Council or Safety and Health magazine. Any mention of a commercial enterprise, product, or publication does not mean the Council or magazine endorses those items. At the end of today's webcast, we will conduct a Q&A session. To ask a question, simply type it in the text box in the lower left-hand corner of your screen and click the button for Submit Question. Feel free to ask your question at any time during the presentation. You don't have to wait for the Q&A session to begin. We'll try to answer as many questions as possible, but because of the large number of participants today, we might not get to every single question. However, all unanswered questions will be forwarded along to today's speakers. For basic troubleshooting information, click the Help button located on your screen. At the end of the webcast, you will be asked to complete a brief evaluation survey. I can let you know more about that once the presentation is complete. This webcast will be archived, so you can access it after today's live event. To view this webcast, as well as all of our past webcasts, go to safetyandhealthmagazine.com/events. With that, let's go ahead and get started. Our first speaker today will be Dr. Bob Pojazic of Pojazic & Associates. He has more than 40 years of experience as a consultant specializing in risk management, EH&S, and organizational sustainability. His book, Organizational Risk Management and Sustainability, A Practical Step-by-Step Guide, is scheduled to be released by CRC Press in January. He teaches an online organizational sustainability course through Harvard University. Our second speaker today will be Doug Hattler, EtQ's Director of Sales in EHS. He has 30 years of experience in marketing, selling, and delivering health, safety, environment, security, sustainability, and quality solutions that reduce operational risk, ensure compliance, and improve business performance. He also is a published industry expert and featured speaker who has worked in the consulting and technology industries. Thanks to all of you for tuning into this presentation, and Dr. Pojazic, whenever you're ready, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you very much. Doug Hattler and I have been examining the relationship between operational excellence and quality, environment, health, safety, and sustainability performance for a number of years now. As the first presenter in this webinar, I will focus on the topic of harmonizing ISO management system structure and how it can help companies integrate a variety of programs that contribute to operational excellence and sustainability. All new and revised ISO management systems, and those of you that are very active in the quality field and have been following the ISO 9001, the 2015 version, they're using the same high-level management system structure. The previous versions of ISO 9001 and ISO 14001 had different structures. It made it very difficult to have them complement each other in practice. All of the ISO management systems are now arranged in a uniform manner to facilitate the highly effective Plan, Do, Check, Act cycle. This slide provides the titles of the key elements in this now uniform structure. And I'll be spending some time at the beginning of this to go over each of these to show how they're used. In this slide, I've presented a list of management system standards that contribute to QEHS and sustainability and operational excellence. I would like to add that this is a partial list of international management systems that are currently available at this time. These standards constitute the rows in a universal platform that I've depicted here that can be used to integrate these practices in any organization that uses them. The rows are constituted by the harmonized management system elements in the previous slide, and the columns are these various standards that we're using. And as you can see, quality is a key one where a lot of customers demand that. But, you need to look at things like asset management, facility management, and procurement, and all of these things because they all weigh heavily in sustainability and operational excellence. So the first element in the harmonized ISO high-level structure centers on the use of a pestle analysis to determine the internal context and external context of every organization. So you can imagine a corporation with 130 facilities around the world, maybe in 40 or 50 different countries. Every one of their operations is different. It has a different internal context and a different external context, and that has to weigh in heavily as to how they look at quality, environment, health, and safety. The pestle analysis creates a listing of opportunities and threats that are faced by the organization, the individual organizations. Opportunities and threats are the effects of uncertainty that are faced by each of these organizations. Each opportunity and threat has stakeholders that have an interest in these specific opportunities and threats. So it's all related. These are not separate elements. They're all related, and every single organization has to determine the context and the stakeholders involved in it. In the second row in this QEHS platform is directed at the accountability of the organization's leaders and provides for the focus of the commitment that leaders are required to adopt to make certain that the QEHS elements listed on this slide are all accounted for. You know, they always had that saying, be careful what you wish for. Quality managers always wanted the leaders to be more involved, and now the leaders are actually involved. And you know, everything's going to begin to change. This accountability is no longer entrusted to a management representative. Matter of fact, this term has been removed from the ISO standard. The roles, responsibility, and authorities of every individual in the organization has to be set by the leader in a way to ensure the success of the QEHS program. This will lead to operational excellence in an organization. The third row in the QEHS platform is focused on the rating of the opportunities and threats as the focus for the planning of the Operational Excellence Program. This goes beyond managing the legal and regulatory obligations of the organization. Instead, it's creating the QEHS objectives and links them to the organizational objectives. So no longer will we have quality goals that are separate from organizational objectives. Everything will be linked to the key strategic organizational objectives. The process reminds us of the need to address the effects of uncertainty as we plan actions to achieve the organization's objectives. The fourth row in the platform reminds us of the many supporting programs that are essential to the proper functioning of an operational excellence program. This involves things like determining and maintaining competence of the people working in the organization, ensuring that the people are aware of the information in the QEHS management system, establishing, implementing, and maintaining the processes needed for internal and external communication relevant to the QEHS management system, and creating, updating, and controlling a system of documented information. So we've really sort of moved away from all of those just having information just to document, but having documented information that is necessary to support the process so that all these various elements can work well together. The fifth row now focuses on the operations themselves, whether the operations are services or manufacturing. It is critically important to implement the control of processes in accordance with the proven operating criteria while maintaining a life cycle perspective for all products and services. That means going back in the supply chain. There are provisions for managing uncertainty and change in operations, as well as considerations for the emergency preparedness and response, as well as operational excellence. ISO 31000 is a standard for risk management and uncertainty analysis, and really helps us a lot in this. You'll see the figure here is after Porter's excellence program, where he looks at the value chain. Along the bottom, you have the various operations that a manufacturing company or some company, even with services, might do. And the elements above are actually the supporting processes that are there to make them happen. So there's no second-class citizenship here for the supporting processes. They become, part of the system that will drive sustainability and operational excellence. The sixth row keeps us focused on the monitoring and measurement of performance. They actually now use the word performance in all of the ISO standards. So it's not, before they sort of left performance up to the organization. Now we actually have to track it and measure it. This involves deriving criteria against which the organization can evaluate its findings and periodically review and revise its processes. There's a management system that is focused on the evaluation of compliance. There's ISO 19600. Maintaining and improving performance depends on the maintenance of an internal audit program and the processing of information through a regularly scheduled management review meeting. Of course, this ties back to the leader's accountability for QEHS in each organization. Finally, the seventh row reminds us to focus on improvement and innovation rather than looking to see if we've just taken the corrective action. I know there's a lot of quality managers that looked at where did this word innovation come from? We understand continual improvement. We've known about continual improvement for years. But to remind you, back in the 2000 update of ISO 9001, you'll remember that there is, of course, ISO 9000, which is sort of the basis for 9001, and there's this 9004, ISO 9004, which is actually the maintenance of a sustainable organization, of all things. And in there, since the year 2000, the word innovation has been prominently in there. And I think now with the new implementation of the new standards, the new revisions in the standards, that we're going to go back and start reading ISO 9000 and ISO 9004 in order to do quality better. The same thing's going to happen in ISO 14000, where the brand new ISO 14004 has been implemented to show us how we can do these things to implement the programs. We got to really be careful about the changes in the external context that could require innovation in order to address the interests of the stakeholders. We've heard so much about this disruptive innovation that's taking place and getting companies to change sometimes the very basis of what they do. And the organization needs to identify the needs for innovation while maintaining an effective and an efficient innovation process. Operational excellence and QEHS needs to create a standard set of practices for QEHS and sustainability. It is great that we can now incorporate international best practice by using many of the ISO management system standards. The management system, remember, always tells the organization what it needs to do. It never tells the organization how to do it. So the organization still maintain their autonomy. There's still plenty of room for good competition here. This is not going to bring somebody down or move somebody forward. It's just a matter of having these. And when you look at this platform that's here, you don't have to have all the columns with everything in it. You just put the things in that you want to. Typically, a lot of organizations in that A column are going to have their quality program, which has always been the basis for a lot of these and often required by customers. Doug will now link this platform to software and other processes that can be used to improve implementation of this QEHS and S platform and to help leaders monitor and improve the improvement down the path to operational excellence. So with that, Doug, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Bob. That was very informative and very helpful. So with that as a backdrop, I'd like to present sort of a view of what's happening in the world of EHS&S from in most of the major companies around the globe right now, or a lot of companies around the globe. There has been historically, there's a transformation that's always been underway, but there's a next wave that's happening, and Bob touched on it with operational excellence. When we began with EHS, a lot of it was driven by regulatory compliance, coming out of the 50s, 60s, and 70s and the Industrial Revolution and trying to curb pollution, keep the workforce safe, provide a duty of care, a lot of that through regulatory regulations and legislation. In the 80s and 90s, we moved into management systems, employing some of the quality management approaches that were brought in by Deming that we learned. And then as we moved into the new millennium, there's been a lot of focus on stakeholder engagement and social responsibility. There seems to be another wave now that seems to be focusing around operational excellence. And we'll talk. Bob talked a little bit about that, but we're going to talk a little bit about what that means and what folks are trying to achieve through operational excellence. But the main driver is happening is that people are finding that EH&S can deliver direct value, can improve business performance. If you can keep accidents, injuries, illnesses down, if you can reduce your environmental footprint, you can see tangible business benefit for your overall organization. One of the other things that's happening as well is we're seeing EHS&S. It's traditionally been environmental health safety, but we're seeing sustainability now in many companies being brought back into EHS&S. Sustainability at times was its own entity, but recent research, particularly some of the research that's been done by Verdantix, an analyst firm that covers environmental health and safety services, environmental health and safety technology, is that the sustainability organizations are being reunited in part of the EH&S organizations, and they're becoming one unit. The drivers of this transformation I kind of mentioned, but you'll see, companies want to ensure safe, secure, and reliable operations. They want to produce safe and effective products, increase organizational effectiveness, engage internal and external stakeholders, prevent unplanned incidents and events, preserve and transfer institutional knowledge, and ultimately they want to sustain their license to operate. Some research that was done recently by LNS Research, ironically, I think they're doing a webinar right now on this, is 4% of the global GDP is the cost of occupational injuries and illnesses. 483,300 occupational injuries and illnesses in U.S. manufacturing annually, and that's just U.S. manufacturing. 88.5 billion annual employee workers' compensation costs. Through those three pieces of data, you can clearly see that if we can introduce operational excellence into the EH&S function and the sustainability function and drive improved operational excellence, creating collaboration and coordination across functional units and across companies, there's a tangible business benefit there. In some of the work that's been done in looking at strategic objectives for improving EHS performance, one of the really the top was looking at overall looking at the improvement of operational performance. Typically, it's always been looking at regulatory compliance, looking at trying to better collect data, reduce. But really, the focus right now, the top objective through the LNS research that's been recently put out is improve operational performance. So 65% of the organizations who are really focused on EH&S performance. Some of the challenges that are in their way of trying to get to that higher performance level were listed here. Two of the key ones, at 49% and 46% of the respondents, was disparate systems and data sources and poor collaboration across departments. So in other words, we don't have good data and communication inflow and outflow between the various functional groups within an organization, whether it be operations, supply chain, finance, environment, health, safety. Everyone is operating in their own silos with their own systems. And what you wind up with is, you wind up with people right now that are inundated with information that they spend more time capturing, more time trying to collate and aggregate, but to have very little time to be able to evaluate it and understand what it means. So these disparate, decentralized systems and data sources, just feed these increased silos and the